Loving eternal God, you definitely have created an incredible place for us to live, to be, to work, to laugh, to cry. And yet, we don't always take good care of it. But God, you have entrusted us with your Son Jesus. You have given us your message and his teachings to help us as we continue to live our lives even in this day, thousands of years later. So God, we ask that you open our hearts, our minds, and our ears to hear and listen to your message. We ask this through your humble servant in prayer. Amen. So today's theme is listening. And I want to talk a little bit about listening. What does it mean to really listen? Well, we normally listen with our ears, right? But some of us may not be able to hear. So we may have to listen a different way. You know, so there's some people who use sign language, and they actually hear through, they can communicate through sign language. But there's more to just opening our ears and just listening or hearing. Have you ever met somebody and they introduced themselves to you, they said their name, and you said, "Oh, hi, how are you?" And then you walk away, it's like, "Now, what was their name?" We don't always hear, right? We don't always totally listen. It takes more than just hearing what somebody says. It means we need to pay attention. We need to be present in that moment. And sometimes it's the tone of voice as to how we say something that you can pay attention to. Is somebody talking very nicely? When we talk to babies, don't we use a little bit different language? You go, "Oh," you know, our voices get higher and we talk in a different way. And it's always usually so joyful with the little ones. And then there's times when maybe we get upset. And either our voice gets higher, or it gets lower, or it gets a little bit more, maybe it gets a little bit louder. So we try to be observant with that too. So we look at things that way. And we hear this story in the book of Acts about Paul traveling, and Paul wants to share the good news of Jesus. And so he's traveling with others, and they're trying to go to certain places to share the teachings of Jesus. And they get blocked a couple of times by the Holy Spirit. It's like, "No, I don't want you going there. I want you going over here." And it wasn't until Paul had a dream. He had a vision in the middle of the night, he had a dream. And when he heard somebody say, "Come to Macedonia, because this is where we need help. We need you to come. Please come." Somebody pleading with him. So what do? Paul senses that's a sign from God, so they leave and they go to Macedonia. And within Macedonia is a place called Philippi. And we actually have a letter of Paul written to the Philippians in the Bible. So Paul goes to Philippi, and they're there for a few days, and on the Sabbath day, they're outside the one gate, and who do they see? They see some women. So they start talking to the women about Jesus. They start teaching and giving more insight. And who was listening but a woman by the name of Lydia? And Lydia heard what Paul was saying. She not only heard, but she embraced it. She embraced it so that she wanted herself and her family to be baptized. And so they became baptized, and she invited them to stay with her and her family for a few days afterwards. So listening can be very important. If we really hear what somebody's saying, if we can have what I call that ministry of presence, when we can be there with somebody. And that doesn't always happen. I'm guilty of it as well. There's times when I hear what somebody said and it just totally went through one ear and out the other, right? You've heard that phrase before. But when I was first learning how to become a minister, when I was in seminary, we had this year-long program called Supervised Ministry. And this is where you worked in some kind of ministry setting with a supervisor, usually a minister, or if you're working in a shelter, you had somebody else. But you had somebody that you worked with, and they taught you a lot of hands-on ministry. And there was one day when I went with my supervisor, and we had a variety of different visits that we were going to do that day. which was really neat because I got to see different types of visits depending upon where we were going. And so there was this one visit that we went to. We went to a family's house, and this one woman was having a very, very difficult time. And I don't remember the particulars, but she was having a very, very difficult time. And I'm sitting, we're in this big, huge living room. The minister's sitting over here, and I'm sitting over here. And the woman who's having a difficult time is all the way on the other side of the room. And so as I'm observing, I'm just being silent, I'm just observing and trying to listen. I saw what this minister did. This minister, as she was listening to what this woman was going through, all of a sudden that minister came right across the living room, kneeled at her feet, and put her hands on her hands to console her, because this woman started crying. And after that visit was over with, I talked to the minister and said, how did you know when to go over to console that woman, to be even more present, to really hear what she was saying? And it was the fact that she not only was listening, but she was paying attention to the body language of this woman. And she could sense that this woman was just about to break down and really cry. And so that's when she went over to comfort her even more. And I'm like, okay. Something else to be more aware of. And then later we went to a hospital and we were going to visit this one person. And the minister she asked if I would like to pray for this person. And of course, how many of us really like to pray in public or pray for others? We don't mind doing it at home, but, and it was going to be my first time praying in front, in this hospital visit. And I thought about it, but I was watching the body language of the patient. And I could see how she lit up when this minister had come in, and how much that presence meant to her. And I said, I could, but I think she really wants to hear the prayer from you, because I was watching what that patient was doing. And I could see that person's eyes light up even more. So the minister, she did the praying, and that was fine. Since then, honestly, I've done a lot of praying with people in hospitals. But I knew what it meant to that particular person at the time. So how is it that when we listen, that we really can tune out other things and listen to God? How do we hear God in our lives? Maybe some of you hear God's voice. Maybe some of you hear God's voice through someone else. Because maybe God says, okay, I'm going to use this other person to tell you what I need you to do. Maybe God is speaking to you through scriptures or through prayer. We all are differently made, so we all may have a different way of tuning in with God. And so last week I talked about the risks that so many people took in the Bible. And I want to go back to those. I talked a little bit about David and Samuel. Samuel was a judge at the time, he was a prophet, and Samuel was the one who wound up anointing David, even though Saul was still king. Samuel had heard from God, and God said, by the way, I need you to go to the house of Jesse, and you're going to anoint one of Jesse's sons. And Samuel had this conversation with God and did go there. But when Samuel saw the first son, he thought, oh, he's tall, he's good looking, he's rugged, this is the one. But he hears God saying, no, it's not him. And so then he goes to the next time, and he still hears God saying, no, it's not him, it's not him, it's not him. And so Samuel's kind of in a quandary because he's like gone through this whole line of Jesse's sons. But then God's telling him, there's another one. And so that's when Samuel asked Jesse, do you have any more sons? And so Jesse says, yes, I have one more. And that turns out to be David. And God says to Samuel, this is the one. So Samuel was listening to what God was saying. Samuel listened to God throughout most of his life, even from when he was young, to continue to serve God. We talked about some of the other people. We talked about Moses. Moses heard God through the burning bush, but Moses listened to God. Now, the people that followed Moses didn't always listen to Moses, did they? That's why they wound up walking in the wilderness for 40 days, 40 years, right? Because they had a little problem listening. And then I talked about a few other people as well. I talked about Jeremiah. If you remember, Jeremiah was young and he told God, I'm only a boy. And yet God said, don't say that you're only a boy. And God blessed him. And then Jeremiah listened to God and followed and shared what God told him to say to others. And the people didn't always listen to Jeremiah, but Jeremiah stayed true to listening to God. So we have all these different people throughout the Bible. And then we get to the New Testament with Jesus, and Jesus telling, the disciples to throw the net on the other side of the boat, even though they had been fishing all night. But they heard him, and they listened, and they did. And that's when they got on the fish. So if we do listen, if we do really hear what God is saying to us, yes, it may involve a risk in following what God is asking us to do. And sometimes we think that we're going to get hit one roadblock after another. But if we really listen to what God is saying, God's going to use all those things to get us where God wants us to be. And I was telling somebody not too long ago that, yes, okay, I didn't go into ministry right away from college, even though some professors in college saw that in me. I didn't at the time. And they told me, well, you weren't ready yet. It's like, that's absolutely true. I was not ready. But even in all the different jobs I did within the paper industry and moving forward, God used those different gifts, those different experiences that I had in order for me to continue to do what I am now, doing in ministry. Even some of the roadblocks I faced at that time. But we can, if we listen, we can do what God is asking us to do. If you were to sit here right now and close your eyes for a moment, if I was silent, what would you hear? What have you heard in the background already? You've heard a baby. Yeah. And sometimes when we do a Bible study, we hear sirens going by. So we know that something's happening to somebody. It's quiet. Did you just hear that noise? There was a little clip back there. Can we quiet ourselves enough to let go of all those distractions so that we can be in that moment with God? Jesus was telling the people, blessed are those who are poor. Matthew says poor in spirit, because poor at that time meant that people who were widows, even if they had money, they were considered poor because they were considered powerless. At that time, women were powerless, especially if they didn't have a husband or a son to help continue on the family business, so to speak. So, blessed are those who are poor in spirit. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Jesus was trying to show us how we can have that ministry of presence with others. But we have to listen. We have to pay attention. We have to hear with our ears. If we are hearing people, we have to open our eyes. We have to maybe sense somebody's body language, sense the tone of their voice, listening. And sometimes we think that God doesn't listen to us, right? Do we ever get frustrated with our prayers? It's like, God, haven't you heard me yet? I've told you time and time again, I need for you to do this for me, God. Or you're praying for somebody and they're not getting as well as you'd like them to get at that time. Sometimes we keep thinking that God is not listening to us. But God does hear. God does listen. God senses our angst, our anxiety. And God knows what we're going through at any given moment. But we have to remember that God does things in God's time, not our time. We're very linear, We started worship at roughly 9 o'clock this morning. This service goes to roughly 10 o'clock, right? And then we have a little break, and then we start the second service. perceive time isn't necessarily how God perceives time. And when things do come to fruition, when we finally go, oh, I get it now, God's saying, now is the time for you to understand. Now is the time for you to realize what I'm asking you to do. Now is the time for you to realize why I did what I did with you. Can we listen? Can we listen like Paul did, understanding that he kept getting blocked to where he thought he was supposed to go until the doors opened to where God wanted him to go. We always think we have a better plan than God sometimes. It's like, here's, God, this is what I got a plan to do for the day. This is my game plan here. And then God's like, okay, that's your game plan. It's not mine. And sometimes you get really frustrated because you can't always make it happen the way you want it to happen. But it's to understand it's okay, because God's saying, you can keep trying that, but through that I'm going to show you this is where I really want to happen. We need to listen. We need to be observant. We need to listen to our community. We need to listen to people's needs. We need to listen with our heart, as well as our eyes, as well as our ears. Let us be open to listen to God and to one another. Amen.